The time has come. The weekend is here. It is college football playoff time. And for the first time ever, they're taking place on campus. So, and this time, well, this is the first time around, but in this world, you can have two coaches with pretty good winning percentages over the past 5 years be fired should results go haywire. And they both have a pretty decent opportunity of doing so. I'm Patriot Dylan. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, follow if you're watching on X, like the video if you're watching on X, download the podcast if you're listening that way. Let's get into that, shall we? So, James Franklin and Ryan Day, two peas in a pod. Both of them are in must-win situations to not just advance in the college football playoff, but to advance in their current jobs, to stay with their current jobs. That is what's on the line in Columbus and in State College. It is absolutely insane to think that no matter what happens in the playoffs, Ryan Day is safe, or whatever happens in the playoffs, James Franklin is safe. I can tell you, Penn State fans, they're not happy with the results over the last 5-6 years of losing to Ohio State, losing to Michigan, losing every single big game that they have been in since really the James Franklin era started. He's got one win against Ohio State, I think 2 or 3 against Michigan. None against Michigan since Michigan rewrited the ship. And so now we are sitting in this weird era that these coaches who have averaged 10 wins per year over the past 5 years, their seat is as hot, if not hotter, than your normal doormat program who is struggling to make a bowl game. And rightfully so. If you are at Penn State, you are expected to win big games. If you are at Ohio State, you are damn sure expected to beat Michigan. In the last 4 years, Ryan Day has failed that, and this year it was even more glaring than the last 3 combined. And we all saw at the end of the game Ryan Day's face. That was not the face of somebody who just lost a game. That was a broken man. He was absolutely broken. That program is broken. And the game this weekend, it would have probably suited Ohio State better to have that game in Knoxville as opposed to being in the not so friendly confines of the Horseshoe. So, Ryan Day. So, we're just going to roll straight into the Ohio State-Tennessee preview. This game between Ohio State and Penn State, or Ohio State and Tennessee, on Saturday night. This has the opportunity to go absolutely horrifically wrong very quickly. If Tennessee is able to draw first blood, and that first blood is 6, Katie barred the door. It is going to be ugly. It is going to, they are going to riot. That if Tennessee is able to draw that first blood and make that 6, Ohio State is going to be wishing they had played this game in Ann Arbor, full of Michigan fans. it is going to get that toxic. That it's going to have that kind of vitriol. Now, Michigan isn't quite as ride or die with their football team. Love them or hate them, that's just the reality. And so, yeah, it would be a lot better for Ohio State in this situation to be playing anywhere else in the country other than Columbus, Ohio. Now, the dangerous thing is that if Ryan Day comes out and tries to put this game in a phone booth again, just like he did with Michigan, because he wants to prove that the Midwest is tough, which is, it's one of those weird unwritten rules about Midwestern teams that they got to be rough, got to be able to run the ball, got to be rough, tough, and use that fullback, use that tight end, that blocking tight end. And for some reason, Ryan Day played into it. Which, yeah, you need a tough, rugged football team, but it's not necessarily a knock to have that more finesse team, especially given that you have an NFL wide receiver room. Everybody in that room is more than likely going to be playing on Sundays. At least the top 3-4 guys. Ibuka, the freshman, they're and we saw in the 2-minute drill going into the half what that Ohio State offense is capable of against that Michigan defense. They could have drove down the field no problem, and yet they still stuck to the running game that was not working. Now, I'm not one to say, screw the running game. We got to abandon it. We just got to throw the ball around the yard. But, good God, you have to. And Ohio State's going to have to attempt to do the same thing Saturday night and throw it around the barnyard, even though, and this is where it's going to get very, very important to do so, is because as it gets colder, because if I'm not mistaken, in Columbus, it is supposed to rain around late second half towards the end of the game. And if you are down in that game and you have to try to throw yourself back into that game, and then you add the freezing rain on top of that, yikes. That is a recipe for disaster. And I hope Ryan Day and Chip Kelly knows how important getting that first score is. And if I'm Ohio State, I win the coin toss, I need to get that ball first. We need to get down the field, and we need to score to get the Buckeye faithful back in our corner. That it is going to be that imperative right off the cuff. There are no ifs, ands, or buts. You have to score first. And if you don't, those Bucknuts, those crazed Buckeye fans, are going to let everybody hear about it. And then everything is going to be coming back from just a few weeks ago when it was Michigan. And then the mind games start again. And if Ryan Day were to lose this game, which I'm going to get to that prediction here in a moment, but if Ryan Day were to lose this game, the Scarlet and Gray faithful is not going to let him coach again. I mean, it is a incredibly high pressure situation for Ryan Day, for the Buckeyes. All the pressure in the world is on Ohio State. Tennessee They have a true freshman. I think he's a true freshman quarterback with Nico, but they also have a good running game. They are a better version of Michigan. They are last year's Michigan, not quite as good on defense, but still very good. It's a very identical build. And you have the offensive-minded coach in Josh Heupel, and everything is coming together for Tennessee, and Nico isn't going to have to make those monster throws that Will Howard's going to have to do. But again, Nico doesn't have the NFL slate of wide receivers that Will Howard does. Now, with that being said, the better defense is going to win this game, and the better defense usually wins this game. I think Ohio State has a slightly better defense, but that running game from Tennessee is going to be the difference. You're going to see in this first half, Dylan Sampson's going to be hitting those 2, 3, 4-yard gains. And then by the second half, things are going to open up. That is my prediction. Ohio State -7 is an absolute spit in the face of Tennessee. And I think Tennessee is going to end up winning this game in Columbus and then go on to play Oregon. That is what I see happening in this game. Because that running game, that physicality, that is going to come in. That's going to come into play. The crowd is going to come into play. And as soon as Tennessee starts moving that ball, and you know what? Maybe Nico hits one off play action. He's a good quarterback. But this is probably going to be the best defense he's seen all year. But he's not going to have to do it all. Like Will Howard is undoubtedly going to be tasked to do. Because that running game for Ohio State is non-existent. It was non-existent with that Michigan defense, and this Tennessee defense, it's pretty close to Michigan's defense, if not just as. So, it's all the pressure on the world is on Will Howard. And I think we're going to see cracks. And we're going to see the horseshoe turn into the powder keg. And when even before the clocks hit 0, we could even see it by halftime with how crazy Ohio State is. That when the clocks hit 0 and the old ball game is over, Columbus, the horseshoe, that powder keg of emotion is going to explode. And everybody will be chanting, "Fire Ryan Day." And rightfully so. Especially when you have somebody like a Mike Vrabel out there. When you have somebody like Brian Hartline, who I think he could be a good head coach. He was a damn good player. And he's produced NFL wide receivers each and every single year. And so we're looking at potentially Mike Vrabel, Brian Hartline, possibly a long shot, Lane Kiffin, maybe going outside the program would be an interesting fit. Maybe an Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer comes back, depending on his medical issues, quote unquote. But yeah, I think certainly Tennessee covers the -7. 46.5. I could easily see this game being a 17-7, 17-14 type game. But I could also see this game going 31-28. But depending on how quickly it rains, how quickly it rains, and is Nico going to be able to dissect the defense and understand the coverages, the disguises, and being able to get off that long ball and get that 70, 80-yard strike to start this game. Because again, it's like Columbus, the horseshoe, it is unstable. Everybody is just waiting to explode. And this is going to be the toughest. This is going to be by far the toughest environment Ohio State has ever played in. Because their crowd, their home crowd, could very well be against them in very short order. We've never seen this in Ohio State playing at home in a meaningful game after Michigan and after losing to Michigan. I mean, you go around Columbus, it's people are still in that depression. They're still going through the stages of grief. And this would be like opening that wound and throwing some salt into it. And unfortunately for the Buckeyes, that's what I see happening. Tennessee is more stable. They are more emotionally in check. There isn't as much pressure. There's no pressure on Tennessee. They're just happy to be here. And they're just happy Alabama's out. And they're playing with house money. Ohio State, they're playing for everything. Ryan Day, he's playing for he's coaching for his job. Chip Kelly, same thing. It's all on the line for Ohio State. Tennessee, this is a rebuilding year. To be quite honest, like Nico's a freshman, and it like being in these hostile environments is not going to be new for Nico. He's gone. He's been in Athens. He's played there. He now knows what to expect. He's been through the SEC gauntlet. He knows what to expect, and it's not gonna faze him as much as a freshman quarterback from the Big 12 or from the ACC. I'm not trying to be like an SEC homer, but in the SEC, going on the road is a totally different ball game than going on the road to a Purdue, to an Iowa State, to a Boston College. It is a totally different game. So, excuse me. So we'll just go up the list here. Clemson at Texas. This game is going to be one that might end up being the headline. You have Clemson, who has, quote-unquote, no business being here. They're only here because of the automatic qualifier from the conference championship. And they're playing on the road in Austin, a somewhat hostile environment. But here's the dirty little secret that nobody wants to say, especially on ESPN. Clemson and Texas, they have the same amount of quality wins. 0. I guess that you can give Clemson the 1 for the ACC championship game, but still, the fact of the matter, it stands. Texas they've gone up against the big dogs twice and lost twice. One was on their home turf. The other was essentially a Georgia home game, but a neutral site, quote unquote. And both games, Quinn Ewers looked bad. And what is that? And it's because Georgia was able to get home. And what is the staple of Clemson football? That front seven. Getting home. Making that quarterback uncomfortable. And Quinn Ewers, he's still got to be feeling that ankle. And you have Cade Klubnik. He's mobile. He's beginning to get the ball rolling. And you could very well see that Cinderella type story where it all comes together just at the right time. And Clemson going off into the sunset. Horns down. Now, Steve Sarkisian could very well be sitting with Quinn Ewers, trying to get that little bit extra of, okay, what happens when this happens? Okay, because Quinn Ewers is good on pre-snap. Post-snap is where the issues come. He can't run out of the pocket and create plays, and buy time. And that's gonna be the problem. There's a reason why the rumors are swirling around Austin that Quinn Ewers is going to be coming back. And if that happens, what kind of domino effect that has, but that's a different video for a different time. But the fact of the matter is, Quinn Ewers isn't quite what we thought he was. He is a phenomenal thrower. But when you go off script, that's when the issues come. And Clemson is very good at making quarterbacks go off script. And the onus is going to be on Steve Sarkisian. How long do you let this go on? Because it's all going to depend on what the situation is if they decide to go to Arch Manning. And if things go south for Texas early, Austin is going to be chanting for Arch Manning to come in, and they will demand that he come in and save the day. Because Arch Manning, he can create. He can throw off platform. And he can make things happen. Quinn Ewers, he's a better thrower of the football. But that's not all that quarterbacks are now. You've got to be able to extend the play, buy time, and Quinn Ewers, he just can't do that. We've seen from Texas A&M, they only put up 17. Granted, it was at Kyle Field, and I'm not saying that's a quality win. It's not. It is. It's a good win. A win's a win. Don't get me wrong. But Texas A&M is not what Clemson is. They are still 1 to 2 years away, depending on how this cycle goes. But Clemson, they're in the dance. They got what they need. And I don't know how I pick Texas here. With what we know and what the facts are on the table for us, I have Clemson pulling off the upset. They're an 11.5 point dog. Give me the Tigers. They're going to win this game. It's a bad matchup for Texas, and the only saving grace that they may have is if Steve Sarkisian recognizes early that, okay, Clemson's getting home. We've tried X amount of different blocking schemes. It's not working. We need to go to Arch Manning. That way he can buy time, throw off platform. and maybe create an opportunity that Quinn Ewers just simply cannot. That's going to be the difference in this game. Because K. Klubnik, he's going to be there. He's going to be bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, ready to roll. And he may very well have his best game as a Clemson Tiger. Now, moving on up to the other win or pack your things game. In State College at Old Beaver Stadium. SMU, the darling of college football, the Cinderella story, the most hated team in Tuscaloosa for the time being. Don't worry, Auburn. You'll get your place back here in a few weeks when they shift back to 2020 or over to 2025. But nonetheless, this is going to be this game here. It is all about mental. It's all mental for James Franklin. He's got the better roster. He's got the better quarterback. He's got the better defense. He's got the better everything. He's even got home field advantage. He's going to have the crowd behind him. Penn State's not as crazy as Ohio State. So it's all lined up for James Franklin to at least somewhat get that monkey off his back, to go on, win that game, get that can't win the big game monkey somewhat off the back, at least calm those yells down a little bit, and go out and win the game. There is no reason, none, on why you shouldn't be able to go in and just smack SMU around. But again, it's James Franklin. It's a big game. We see over and over again that the moment gets too big for James Franklin. And could this be finally the game? I think so. I think so. There's just too much of a talent gap right now between SMU and Penn State, especially being at home, especially with the weather being cold. And it's going to be slightly above freezing for this game. And it's going to get a little bit warmer as it goes on. So I don't think weather is going to play quite as much of a factor, but it's still going to be cold if you're from Dallas, the Dallas-Fort Worth area, which SMU is. There is zero reason. Drew Waller is the best quarterback in the Big Ten. Penn State has the second best defense in the Big Ten. And from top to bottom, the Penn State roster is better than SMU's. The only thing I would say SMU has on Penn State is the coaching. And that's the big thing. Is this moment too big for James Franklin? I don't think in this round it will be. But like I said, Penn State wins. They are an 8.5 point favorite. I think Penn State is going to be able to cover 53.5. I could see I could see a 31-17 type game. I'm trying to do the math in my head before. I don't know. You can grab the calculator and do that math. But it's going to be roughly 31-17, something along those lines, maybe 28-10. Thanks for coming, SMU. It's been fun. We'll see you in the next. We'll see you next year. And then the first game to kick it all off, the historical 12-team playoff that has certainly been a massive mess. The battle for Indiana. The Hoosier State the home of the Indy 500. Notre Dame, Indiana, in South Bend. Weather, not so much a factor because they both live in Indiana. But nonetheless, obviously, uh, Marcus Freeman, he's gotten an extension. So obviously his job is not on the line in this game, which is the only reason why I did not include him in this thumbnail. Because Notre Dame gave him a vote of confidence. Why, I don't know. But he does not have neither team has that quality win that says this team is good. This is a good team. I mean, Indiana's pretty much smacked around every team that they've played outside of Ohio State, and Michigan hung around too. But that could be that I would put more as a psychological game, just because Indiana hasn't beaten Michigan in a very, very long time. So I would just chalk it up to that. But nonetheless, Indiana, they've blown out every team they've played. Notre Dame, they've pretty much, I don't want to say they've blown out every team that they've played because I don't think they necessarily have. But they've got some notable wins. USC, Army, Navy, the whole shebang. Although their blemish is even uglier than Indiana getting smacked around by Ohio State. They lost to a middle of the road MAC team of Northern Illinois. Now with Indiana, those things, it caused Indiana got tense. They made some stupid mistakes. Obviously, Indiana is not as bad as what the score showed. It was just a moment that they weren't ready for. And with a program that's finally coming up, you're going to have those games. But now you've been in that moment. You've been in that environment. Because I can promise you, Columbus is a lot harder to play than Notre Dame. Now, with that being said, this is a matchup nightmare for Indiana. And then on top of that, if it does end up raining pretty good in South Bend, which it says it's supposed to, there's like a 55% chance of rain. That's vintage Notre Dame. 7, I think, is pretty okay. I do suspect that it's going to be around that number. It's going to be somewhere between 4 and 10 points. Yeah, I know, widespread, but it's I see Notre Dame, if they're able to get it off early and be able to jump out to that 7, 10, 14 point lead, it's game over for Indiana, and it's going to get ugly. But again, much like with Penn State, much like with Ohio State, and even with Steve Sarkisian, it's a big game. It's a game that matters. Ohio State, Texas, Penn State, Notre Dame, they have all shown that when the lights get bright and everything is on the line, they crumble. Which is quite funny because they're all the home teams. But nonetheless, the lights are brightest. Can Marcus Freeman keep his head on his shoulders and be able to block out that sound of, oh, Notre Dame can't win the big game. They haven't won a big game since the 80s. Can they? I don't know. And I think Notre Dame wins. Like I said, it's just a very bad matchup for Indiana. I think they're still about a year away, 1 to 2 years away, depending on what they're able to do in recruiting in the transfer portal, which I haven't checked because it's Indiana. And they're not quite on my radar enough to be looking at the recruiting rankings for them. But nonetheless, what Kurt Getty has done this year is nothing short of a miracle. And win or lose, hell of a season from the Hoosiers. And I cannot wait to see them go at it again next year. So, I got Notre Dame, Penn State, Clemson, Tennessee. So the home teams are 2-2, is my prediction. I don't think Notre Dame. I'm staying away from that 7-point line, because this game could go. This game could be close or it could get ugly, but either way, I think Notre Dame wins. But Notre Dame, Penn State covers the 8.5. Texas or Clemson wins outright. Tennessee wins outright. Those are my predictions for the preview playoff show. Now, let's get into the fun stories, huh? We got some fun stories for you that I have been too lazy to come on and make a video on. Which, yeah, yell at me. Go ahead. Take your moment. Okay. So, let's dive in on this here. Bill Belichick to be the North Carolina head football coach in a real interesting contract. It's guaranteed for 3 years. It's a 5-year deal, about $10 million a year. And it's I don't understand. It's a very weird contract. I mean, $20 million in NIL, it's gonna be serviceable in the ACC. But you have to ask the question of why is one of the greatest coaches of all time going to the 4th best ACC job? Like, they're not even a football school. North Carolina, Tobacco Road, they live, breathe, and die basketball. I mean, it's the home of the GOAT, Michael Jordan. Now, they do have the $20 million war chest, which $20 million is only going to take you so far, especially for North Carolina. But it is good enough to get them in the ACC picture. Problem is, you have to be able to get a quarterback. You cannot rely on a running back to get you there. Not in a league with Cade Klubnik, not in a league with Cam Ward. Bill O'Brien, he's going to be getting a quarterback in Boston College eventually. I mean, it was his first year this year. And I mean, Bill O'Brien Bill O'Brien knows what he's doing. Belichick, this is totally new territory. So, I mean, it begs the question, what happens? Now, here's the interesting thing. Belichick's, this is the tweet from Chris Vanni. Bill Belichick's buyout is $10 million until June 1st, 2025. So, he could be out before they even coach a game. What in the world? Now, I haven't seen for sure in Belichick's contract, but the rumor mill continues to roll that this is an attempt, that this is a way to set up a good situation for his son, Steve Belichick, to take over once he finally retires. Now, I think Steve Belichick, he's a good coach. We saw that in Washington this past year. He's done a tremendous job. I think Steve Belichick is going to have to play a major role in this if this is going to be successful. He spent the year in college. He's going to have to go out. He's going to have to go get himself a very good offensive-minded or a very good offensive coordinator who can develop quarterbacks. And I do think Belichick gets a very bad rap as far as his personality. He just hates the media. I think he's got the personality to be a college coach, and I think he's going to be able to connect to college recruits. The question is going to be: is the defense going to be able to catch up to the Belichick schemes? Are they going to be able to execute Belichick schemes? Is Belichick going to be overbearing on the offensive side of the ball? And is his decision-making, when it pertains to the offensive side of the ball, going to be better than what we saw the last couple of years in New England once Belichick left? And even before he left? That's the questions that we certainly have in this. And I have to believe Belichick learns from his mistakes, especially after taking this year off and watching college football and watching football as a whole from one step back. And so I don't know what the window is. 5 years, $10 million a year. That is what you expect out of a national championship. So is the 5-year plan for North Carolina to win a national championship with Bill Belichick and hoping that this $20 million war chest to start is legitimately just the start? We'll have to wait and see and find out. And then the final story that I have for you is a representative from the state of Ohio, actually one county over from me. He wants to make planting a flag in the middle of the stadium of Ohio State, in the middle of the horseshoe. He wants to make this a felony. A felony. Now, Josh Williams is the representative. He is a conservative. And, I'm going to have to smack my fellow conservative here and say, what the hell? You should know as well as I do. If you don't want a flag that is not yours planted in the middle of your field, win the game. The OHIO Sportsmanship Act. It's so stupid. I get sportsmanship's important, blah, 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 blah. But, oh my God. Here's an idea. Protect your home turf in those 60 minutes. This is absolutely infuriating. And you're going to make it a felony because your squad can't beat a 7-5, but should be 6-6 Michigan football team who has a quarterback with 2 last names and would be a backup in the FCS. And you want to make it a felony to do so. Kick rocks, Josh. Kick rocks. Primary this fool. We got more important things to care about in the in the political side of Columbus than, Michigan planted a flag because they kicked our ass. Get over it. Move on with your life and actually do something for the people of Ohio instead of trying to protect their feelings because they can't handle getting their ass whooped by Michigan. over and over and over again. And the dumbest thing about this is a lot of Ohio State fans are like, nope, we ain't touching this one. Bad, nope. Even Ohio State fans understand that this is absolutely insane, and this Josh Williams guy is just we got a million other things to worry about on the political side. Let's leave the footballing to the footballers. Stay in your lane. Stay out of sports. Get back to Congress. Well, state Congress. And do your damn job. Because this is insane. Want to imprison people for a year for planting a flag that they rightfully earned the right to do. So yeah, there's that. So, all right, we're all set for the college football weekend. I am extremely excited for what's to come, and yeah, I'm ready to get this ball rolling. Grab my math cookies, which the link for that will be down below, and watch some college football playoffs. I'm Patriot Dylan. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss anything. If you're watching on the podcast, listening on the podcast, make sure you hit the download button and follow so you don't miss an episode. And if you're watching on X, hit the follow. That's where you're going to get the most immediate reactions from me on everything that happens, because it is a lot easier sending out a tweet than making a short. So, other than that, we'll see you later.